Anthony Arvanitakis. Welcome to the
Yes.
show.
Thank you very much, Brett. It's an honor being on your show.
So you wrote a book called Homemade Muscle. It's all about body weight training, which I think is going to interest a lot of our podcast listeners. But before we get to that, let's talk about how you developed this program, how you got into body weight training, because it's an incredible story.
Hmm.
So it all started several years ago with a life changing accident that happened in Greece, where you're from.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
Can you tell us about that accident and just what happened, right? That changed your life.
sure. So I'm 23 years old. I'm studying in Greece. I'm studying in a sports science university in Thessaloniki. And during that time, I'm also working as a pizza delivery guy, make some extra bucks aside from studies and that. And one night I just I'm crossing this road and suddenly I crash with this really big Jeep and I just start flying into thin air. So I was probably, from what I was told, I flew in the air for about 25 meters. I think that's something like 70 feet, I think. So I end up on the pavement, and well, before I actually end up on the pavement, the fun thing is that time really goes slow in this situation. It's kind of easy, you see, and so time goes really slow. I have this like really weird feeling of lack of uh, weight, of uh, feeling myself, and I land on the ground. I don't feel any pain at first, because of the whole like hormonal response of your body, adrenaline and this and that. And I lift my head and I look downwards and I see that my ankle is basically laying on my knee. And, I'm wearing jeans so I can't see any blood or, any trauma. But, I realize that that's not a good sign. So I freak out a little bit. I don't feel any pain. I'm like, what the hell is happening? But after a few, I would say half a minute, I don't know, the pain comes in. I feel this like really fiery, burning feeling through my leg, and after that, people came around. I wait for the ambulance. They took me to the hospital where I stayed for 6 weeks. I had about, I think I had 7 operations during those first 6 weeks, and yeah, they were basically trying to reconstruct my leg, which was severely broken, smashed, a lot of skin missing. So a lot of plastic surgery, a lot of surgery in general, and that kind of summarizes the accident. I don't know if you want to learn more.
Yeah. So that was the accident, but that's which is traumatic, but it seems like the really hard part, uh,
Hmm.
emotionally, mentally, was after the accident for the next few years. So, tell us about that. I didn't know about this device that they put on your leg. I didn't know this existed. So part of the reconstruction process, they had to affix a device around your leg. Can you tell us a little bit about that and like what effect it had on your life?
Yeah. So what happened after the accident was that I was told I would have to basically not walk on my leg for a year. And for me that was quite traumatic because I was always used to exercising in my life. I was always a big fan of. I was a rower. I was a canoe kayaker, and I grew up doing sports. So that was really frightening for me. And they had these devices, as you said, on my leg, which are called external fixators. And what they do basically is they put pins through your leg. So these pins go in your leg and out of your leg. So you basically have like open little wounds. Um, and the reason they do this is because these pins are attached to like a greater metallic device that keeps the bone steady and it allows it to heal. But also because I was missing 6 centimeters, 2.5 inches of bone, this also helps regenerate bone tissue and lengthen the leg. So every time the bone heals a little bit, the device pulls the bone away and it creates more calcium between the wound. So that helps elongate the leg. And anyway, I had like all kinds of weird operations. Like they took bone marrow from my hip and to put it in my leg to help speed the recovery, which didn't work. I had a lot of plastic surgeries. I had in total 13 surgeries over the next 5 years. So, that 1 year basically ended up becoming 5 years because my healing wasn't um, progressing as fast as they thought. So, it was that was the real part, waiting and like never having any progress, and having your doctors telling you that, okay, you have to wait another 3 months, and those 3 months become a half a year. And so, like, oh, I'm 23 years old. All my friends are moving on with their lives, like they're finishing their studies, they're finding jobs, and I'm basically doing nothing. And of course, I ended up really depressed. It was a really dark time for me. Those 5 years were probably the darkest time I'll ever have in my life.
Because you were just basically bedbound. You just had to sit up, lay down all
Yeah,
day, and that was
I
it.
was, yeah. I was basically either recovering from a surgery or waiting for a new one. So yeah, I couldn't do a lot.
Right. And then even you ended up moving from Greece to the Netherlands, right? Just
Yeah, yeah.
to continue, see if you can actually improve this.
Yeah, I came to the Netherlands for a second try, but they did their best here. Really good doctors, but we couldn't actually fix the gap. So at some point, I took the decision. I told my doctors that I want my leg amputated. I want a prosthetic leg, so I move on with my life. Because like for me, continuing my life with a cane and not being able to do basically anything of the things I like to do wasn't an option that seemed functional for me.
So, I mean, tell us about that. I mean, what at what point? 'Cause it seems like when you made that decision to amputate your leg, which is a really big decision, right? I mean, you're losing a part of yourself.
Yeah.
It seems like that was the point where body weight training came into play, and I mean, I kind of prepared you for
Hmm.
your amputation. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the moment I took the decision to have my leg amputated, first of all, I started meditating at that time. So I've never meditated in my life, and that helped me a lot to like deal with all my emotions. And after I got like my mind a little bit settled down, I started training again because I thought, I have to train in order to be prepared for this surgery. So I had 6 months to prepare for the surgery, and I thought, what the hell, I'll get like in my best shape of my life and prepare my body, prepare my mind, so I can go through this last surgery as prepared as be. So at that point, the gym was far away from me. I didn't have any means of transportation, and I realized that I should find a solution to train at home. So I basically started doing some pull-ups on this door frame. I didn't even have like a pull-up bar. I had a long cast on my leg, but I still hopped around on my good leg and just started doing some pull-ups on the door frame. And after that, I started adding some push-ups. I started adding some ab exercises. All that combined with nutrition and meditation every day to keep my mind healthy as well, led to a really, for me, a really remarkable transformation. Because like I went from completely depressed and unhealthy, like I had lost all my muscle um, prior to my accident. I wasn't in shape. I was pretty unhealthy. I wasn't eating any more healthy, and within a few months, I basically got into great shape. My body started looking really good again, and I started feeling amazing. And I'd never expect that I'd feel so good again in my life. And for me, that was like remarkable. I couldn't believe that I was feeling so good again. And all that helped me go through the amputation really comfortably. It was basically the easiest operation I had. And because, of course, it was also a permanent solution finally. And I don't know, due to all my positive habits, due to that mindset I was building for 6 months through meditation, through nutrition, and through exercise, uh, the operation was remarkably easy. I didn't expect it to be that easy.
Right. And I mean, what insights? I mean, what was it like after you amputated legs? I mean, that's a big deal, right? You lose a part of you. I mean, what insights about life did you get from that experience? Or was there anything that surprised you about amputating your leg that you thought, I wasn't expecting to feel that,
Hmm.
or, have that emotional response? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when people ask me nowadays about this, my response is that my losing a leg was basically the best thing that happened to me, because it changed me completely as a person, and it changed me towards the good. And there are a lot of like psychological studies on this, on how people deal with trauma, and there seems that there is truth in that old saying that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's not in all people, but people who choose to deal with problems like that tend to do that. So for me, it changed everything, because, like, for example, prior to my accident, I was generally a really negative person, low self-esteem, I never had self-belief. I never took care of my mind. I was always training all my life and avoiding emotions and people through exercise. So, whenever like I got frustrated, I just went and ran like 15 kilometers, and that tends to calm you down for a little bit, but it basically masks the problem. You don't deal with it. So I discovered that after spending 5 years in bed, that we have to also train our mind. It's training your body is really good, really important, but you also have to train your mind. So, for example, prior to my accident, I was a person that never read any books. Like, I've probably read maybe 5 books outside school. Now I'm a person who reads a book a week. Like, for me, that's remarkable. If I told my old self that, I wouldn't believe it. And through my accident, I basically realized that there's no such thing, or at least there are very few things one can't get over. Like one of my favorite authors, Robert Greene, calls it the ultimate alchemy in life, transforming bad stuff into good. So once you realize that losing a leg is something you can deal with, and it's not that difficult to overcome, that basically spreads into your life. That it becomes a mindset, and it sort of turned into a game for me. Like, every time something bad happened after that, I always thought, so how can I use this? How can I turn it into something good? Because eventually losing my leg turned into me creating my fitness project and motivating people all around the world, which is pretty awesome. It's my passion, it's my work, and it's something that basically makes me want to wake up in the morning. So you don't have to always react negatively to problems, because if you look hard enough, you'll always find an opportunity behind them. That's my mindset in life, and it seems to be working every time nowadays.
Gotcha. So after your amputation, how did you, I imagine you continued the body weight training. At what point did you decide this is something I could do for a living, or I could share with other people, how body training can be an effective way to get stronger and more physically fit?
Mm-hmm. Well, when I realized that I can get in a really great shape without even going to the gym, just training at home, I thought of like making a video about my transformation and all that on YouTube, and see if people like it. So people liked it. It got shared from some popular guys online. And that's when I realized that this is pretty cool. Like, all the feedback I'm getting from people saying, that they got motivated by my story, that it made their day, it helped them emotionally. That's when I realized that this is really awesome, and I should do something more with it. So, I started my website, the YouTube channel. I continued making videos, and then I realized that I should write a book about all this. So I wrote my book, and it did pretty well. People seemed to like it a lot, and that's when I realized that this is my personal calling in life.
This is great. We talked about your backstory of how you came to this point where you are showing others how to use body weight training for strength programming. But let's get into the nitty gritty of body weight training. Because this is interesting, because I'm a barbell guy. I love barbells. But what I loved about your book is that compared to a lot of other body weight books or articles I've read, like, it actually there's some programming. There's a method to the madness. I feel like with a lot of body weight training, it's just like you wake up and do 25 push-ups and then do 25 air squats and pull-ups. I just feel like there's no progression with it. So before we get into the programming of body weight training, let's talk about what are the benefits of body weight training. And I know you're a body weight training guy, but I'm curious if you think there are any downsides to it as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, so the thing that you said, let's start with the benefits. So first of all, it's functional. I mean, how much functional does it get than bodyweight exercise? Because you're learning to use your body in all kinds of different exercises. And one of the most typical reasons that old people's health declines is after falling. So when old people fall and break a bone or something, their health tends to decline a lot. That's how my grandfather died. He was this extremely healthy guy, and he broke his leg, and after that, his health just started decreasing until I lost him. So I realized that building your strength through bodyweight exercise helps you build not only strength, but your strength in symmetry with your balance. It helps you master your own body in it increases your kinesthetic awareness, which is basically your body's knowledge of your surroundings through receptors you have in your joints, muscles, and skins. And it also works your muscles in symmetry with your connective tissues. So, you can't overload your muscles without loading the connective tissue. So, tendon trauma doesn't occur that much. Injuries in the tendons, which is pretty often the case, doesn't occur that much, and it's a safer way to train, and it can be done everywhere, which means that for me, it's in the long term, it's a more functional way of training in life in general, because with the gym, you always need a place to go, but with bodyweight exercise, doesn't matter, wherever you are, you can always keep on getting stronger.
And it's free, right?
Yeah, and it's free. That's one of the main reasons I got into it. But then I realized all these other benefits.
Right. And any downsides? I mean, to it. I mean, it sounds like it's awesome, but are there any things that it's body weight training is limited in?
Yeah. Well, the one thing I would say that it's not for me, it's not a limit, but for some people it might be. It's that it's a little bit more difficult to build a lot of bulk in your legs. So like if you're looking to build really bulky legs, like I'm pretty honest, it's not easy to do it with bodyweight exercises. That's why I use weighted sandbags, for example, and I do weighted lunges. But I would say that barbell squats is one of the elements missing in bodyweight exercise, and if you can combine barbell squats with upper body bodyweight exercises, I don't see there's no limit after that. You can become extremely strong and be the strongest you ever was.
Right. And I mean, what are some of the mistakes? Because a lot of people like the idea of body weight exercises. Like I like the idea of body weight training. There's a lot of content online about body weight training. But what are the biggest mistakes that people make when they start a body weight strength program?
Yeah. So number one is what you said, basically. There's no programming. So people just, go wherever they go to train, and they just keep on banging, exercises and reps and sets without any programming in the long term. That's one thing I do. And, the more time goes, the more I develop my own programming. And, I basically use a lot of so I studied sports science, so my base comes from strength training, but everything applied in strength training in barbells can be applied in bodyweight exercise if you learn to adapt a few things. So programming is number one. Number two is people usually do too much reps. So let's say you can do 25 push-ups, if you keep on adding reps after that, and some people do 50, some people even do 100 push-ups, it's not going to build a lot of strength after a certain point. So just like every kind of strength training, you have to work in that spectrum of strength, which is between 1 and I would say 20 repetitions, 20 to 15, it depends with the exercise. But you have to stick to lower rep ranges. And the way you do that with bodyweight exercise is you adapt the exercises. So, after push-ups, you can learn to do one-arm push-ups, which, might sound difficult for some people, but I never thought I would be able to do one-arm push-ups, and I managed to do them in a few months with the appropriate progressions. I can even do one-arm pull-ups nowadays, which I never thought in my life I would be able to do. So, learning to progress the exercises in order to keep the reps low is another key element. And
so this sounds like this is how you increase intensity with body weight training. Because that's the question I've always had is okay, great, I can do 25 push-ups, well, with barbell training, like you can add more weight or more intensity just by throwing more plates on the barbell. So I guess the way you increase intensity with body weight training is modifying the exercise.
Yeah, modifying the exercise, the angle, like you can put your legs higher. But another very important aspect I've been studying a lot and I've been talking a lot about in my channel lately is the appropriate mind to muscle connection. So what I realized after a certain point was that a lot of people just, keep on banging reps without basically focusing on the muscle tension. And you can do a lot of reps, if your form is a little bit bad and if you're not training with awareness. But if you learn to manipulate mind to muscle connection, it's crazy how much more difficult you can make an exercise. And like I wrote a book a few weeks ago on how to do push-ups with the right mind to muscle connection. And like, so many people mailed me back that, I was never feeling any difference in my strength for push-ups. And suddenly I'm doing like half the reps I could do, but I'm gaining more muscle. So mind to muscle connection is extremely important. And it's something I'm talking a lot about lately in my YouTube channel. And I've seen incredible increases in not only in my physique, but also in my strength from using this.
Okay. So let's talk about the main exercises in bodyweight training, because there's a ton of them out there, right? Like you can find just a bunch, but you just focus on just a few of them. So what are the main exercises in your bodyweight training program?
Yeah. So my main exercises that's another typical mistake. People, try to find like all those secret kind of variations for this muscle and that muscle, when in essence it's pretty simple. You have to pull and push on a vertical angle. That means you have to do handstand push-ups and pull-ups. And handstand push-ups, for example, are pretty difficult, but there are also progressions for that. You have to pull and push in a horizontal angle. That means doing inverted rows and push-ups. And you have to squat, of course. I do single leg squats. I do weighted lunges with a sandbag on my shoulder. And you have to do some kind of exercise for your core. Ideally, an exercise that uses your core as a total. So, for example, I do a lot of rotational training nowadays with elastic bands. You can also do leg raises, which is another great exercise for the abs. So those are the basic exercises people should focus on. And, if you focus on just keeping on getting stronger on those basic exercises, that's when you'll see the most results.
Okay, so it sounds very similar to like a barbell programming. There's a push-pull.
Yeah, exactly. I've kind of like stolen my philosophy from people like, like the people you like from the barbell world, because it works pretty well in bodyweight exercise as well.
Okay, that's awesome. So let's talk about bodyweight training program for beginners, right? So what does that look like? I mean, how many days is a beginner going to work out? Because I think a lot of times when people imagine bodyweight exercises, like it's something you do every day, but it seems like that's not what you're advocating. You want rest periods in between. So let's kind of lay out a beginner programming for bodyweight training. Like how many days they're working out, what kind of rep scheme are they doing?
Yeah. So ideally, I like to start beginners with training 3 times a week. A typical mistake beginners do is, they train like sort of in the bodybuilding type of training. So they do like one day they do chest, the other day they do back, which doesn't work at all with bodyweight exercises. What I advocate is full body workouts 3 times a week and, hitting all those major muscle groups and doing all those basic exercises. So with beginners, I'll start them always with pull-ups, push-ups, leg raises, legs, squats, single leg squats. And, that's basically it. In the beginning, I need people to get stronger at pull-ups and push-ups, because if you're not good at those, there's no way you'll progress to other stuff later on. So after that, I'll add some dips, I'll start adding some pike push-ups, which are a progression for the handstand push-up. And slowly we'll build it up to the exercises we were talking about previously. And, if you're hitting these exercises hard, you do need a resting day, especially if you're a beginner. And also, if you're a beginner, you don't need that extreme amount of training volume. If you focus on all the stuff I just said, it's going to be enough to get stronger.
Okay. one question. I mean, I'm guessing it's possible to overtrain with body weight training.
Of course.
If you're just cranking out reps all the time, you're trying to do 100 push-ups a day. But I imagine there's ways to deload with body weight training, because that happens in barbell training. You get to a point where there's like so much fatigue in your body that it can't adapt and recover, so you back off and kind of lower weight, lower volume. Is there something similar in your body weight training programming?
Yes, so that's something I also do. So basically, if you're training properly, if you have like a good program, and you're pushing yourself, you're going to need a deload week. If you're training like for months or how long you're training and like you never feel tired, that means that you are not actually pushing yourself hard enough. So if you push yourself hard enough, you're going to need deload weeks. The way I do that is I simply decrease the training volume, so I do less sets, and I also decrease the reps. So like if you were doing 10 reps the previous week, take it a little bit easier, do about 8 reps. So like that's like 20% less. And those deload weeks are essential for giving your neuromuscular system a break, because it's not only your muscles that get tired, it's also those connections that your body always uses from your mind to your muscles. And in general, you need a break. You need to reduce stuff. Taking a whole week off is always bad for me, because you're gonna lose strength. So deload weeks are great. They in a way they're like sort of slingshotting you towards more strength in the next week if you learn to apply them correctly.
Yeah, this is great. I love this. And in your book, you lay out. People can check it out and they can see the very specific programming. And if you're interested in this stuff, I'd highly recommend you go get the book. Really great stuff. You mentioned earlier one of the benefits of body weight training is that there's fewer injuries than other types of training, but injuries can happen. What are the most common ones you see during body weight training?
Mm-hmm. Well, the most common ones I would say are wrist pain, because you're using a lot of hyperextension in the wrist, so that tends to take a toll on your body. The way I deal with that is I have a lot of conditioning exercises. I do wrist push-ups, which is basically doing push-ups on the opposite side of your palm on the wrist. I have some progressions on that on my YouTube channel. Those seem to really work good for strengthening the wrist. Using your knuckles, for example, instead of doing push-ups on your hands, and changing little stuff like that always helps. And of course, taking it easier for a little while. Other problems are elbow pain that occur usually from chin-ups, because if you go all the way down in chin-ups, that creates a lot of torsion in your elbow and in your wrists, because that's not a comfortable position anatomically for your upper body. So a really fast tip would be, don't completely unlock your elbows when you're doing chin-ups. You can unlock if you're doing pull-ups, but with chin-ups, always keep a little bit of a bent elbow. Other problems then are knees and back. And this is something I researched a lot the last year. And I realized that pistol squats, which I was doing, I do have videos on my channel. I also included them in my older books and stuff. But I realized that pistol squats tend to create problems for a lot of people. And, they're kind of the holy grail. They're kind of the holy grail in bodyweight exercise when it comes to leg training. But after a lot of research, I realized that they do cause problems in most people. Problems in the back specifically, and problems in the knees. That is why I nowadays only do weighted lunges.
So can you explain what a pistol squat is for those who aren't familiar with it?
Yeah, so basically a pistol squat is a squat on one leg. From a standing position, you go all the way down on one leg and go all the way up.
Right. Like the leg you're not using like shoots out in front of you. So you kind of look like a pistol. I guess that's why they call it a pistol squat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard to do. And it's really uncomfortable, and I don't like doing them because I can only do like one.
Yeah,
that's
you're
it.
not the only one.
It's so hard to do. Okay, so maybe avoid those because they can cause stress on your knees and your back. Besides the body weight exercise, like the pull-ups, the push-ups, you advocate some other things to help with your development of strength and fitness, like, for example, mobility training. What sorts of things do you recommend people do or incorporate throughout the day to become more mobile? And how is mobility different from, say, flexibility?
Yeah. Well, one thing I'm a big advocate of are mobility drills. And mobility drills are most people feel that there are those exercises old people do, because you're basically just moving your joints um, in circular motions. For example, just rolling your wrists around, or rolling your arms into your shoulder, in and out. So these are mobility drills, and what they do is they increase circulation of synovial fluid in your joints. Synovial fluid is basically your body's natural lubricant. It's like the grease that you put on hinges, on door hinges. Like, that's our natural lubricant. And this, when you're doing mobility drills, you're basically smoothing out adhesions that might be from old injuries. You're removing waste products. And I've seen, at some point, I started experiencing a little bit of pain in my joints. And I realized, that first of all, things change in your body as you reach your 30s. I'm 30 now. And the moment I started doing mobility drills on a daily basis, like, I felt like I was 20 years old again, like no pain, no nothing. So that's why, that's the reason I'm a big advocate of mobility drills. And the difference with flexibility is that flexibility is basically sitting in a passive position, like in a static position, and just stretching a muscle out. Mobility drills are basically using movement through your joints in order to get some movement in those joints, and move those fluids that help them get healthier. And a lot of people do stretches, but we've nowadays realized that there are not a lot of benefits with stretching. Like, it doesn't help with warming up. Actually, most studies show that they increase your risk of injury if you do them before, as a warm-up. And they don't even increase recovery rates so much. I'm not saying that stretching is bad, but I still do stretching. But the reason I do it is because it just calms me down. So, late at night, I might do some stretching. I like it. It relaxes me. And, the feeling is also it's just nice. It's sort of like scratching an itch in your body. So that's the main reason I use stretching. But nowadays, not that much, only just to chill a little bit.
Yeah, that's how I stretch, just because it feels. I don't stretch before I work out or after I work out. Just I do it when I'm maybe watching TV because it feels good.
Yeah.
About it. Well, hey, Anthony, this has been a fascinating conversation. And I know we could get more into detail, but where can people learn more about your work?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm pretty active on YouTube. I upload videos almost on a daily basis. So on YouTube, you can find me as Homemade Muscles with an S. My website is homemade muscle with no S in the end .com. And over there you can find everything else. My Facebook group. I also have an Instagram account. But you can pretty much find everything else over there.
Awesome. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much as well. Have a great day.
My guest today was Anthony Arvanitakis. He's the author of the book Homemade Muscle. All you need is a pull-up bar. You can find that on Amazon.com. And you can also find out more information about Anthony's work at homemademuscle.com.